Mr. Sainath, what do you make of the government saying, this is basically an old philosophy, particularly of this present dispensation, that the government has no business to be in business. And, if you can facilitate an open market, if it is available for everyone else, why can it not be available for the farmer?
Firstly, this is based on an absurd, farcical assumption. It's based on the assumption that the APMCs are some kind of center of the evil empire, exerting a monopoly over agricultural produce and enslaving the farmer. That is so much rubbish. The bulk of transactions to this day, the bulk of transactions of agricultural marketable surplus take place outside the APMC. Because most farmers in this country, most producers and cultivators in this country already have their product wrapped up in unwritten contracts to the sahukar, to the commission agent, to the big trader, to the money lender. That is already, it's very rare. The percentage that actually reaches the APMC is not that much. Sanket, let me give you, for your viewers, a better understanding of the APMC, which doesn't seem to dawn on the media at all. The APMC is to agriculture what the government school is to education. You can call the government schools the APMCs of education, or the PHCs are the APMCs of the health sector. What about government schools? They're bad, they're underfunded, they're systematically whittled away by the state. They have very poor facilities. Most of them don't have toilets, as the CAG is telling you. All this is true, and yet they're the only place that tens of millions of poor Indian children can go to get a schooling. So let's shut down government schools. Let's liberate the kids from there. For what? Where will they go? You're seeing under the pandemic, under the lockdown, that poor children, we are now moving from a digital divide to digital partition and digital apartheid. Okay? Now you strike down the structures of government schools. Where do the tens of millions of kids who can't afford anything else go? The APMCs, likewise, are not having any great monopoly whatsoever. And even the changes to the APMCs that they want to make, have already been done in the Vashi APMC. None of the stated results have happened. Can I give you a suggestion for the Prime Minister? You're saying this dispensation, actually, the Prime Minister's positions have at one level, been pretty consistent. I'm offering a 5-paragraph law, a bill that would be passed unanimously by Parliament based on the Prime Minister's assurances. The Prime Minister Narendra Modi, if you get onto the Ministry of Consumer Affairs website, as Mr. Ajay Veer Thakur of the Bharati Krishak Samaj has already done and enlightened us, if you get onto the website of the Ministry of Consumer Affairs, you will find a report of the working group on these issues, which was chaired by a chief minister called Narendra Modi in 2011. It submitted a report to the then Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, arguing that no agricultural transaction, no transaction between a farmer and a trader should be allowed to occur at less than MSP. That was signed by the chairman of the committee, Mr. Narendra Modi. Now, second, two assurances Mr. Modi has made repeatedly. You've been reporting them every day. One, in reply to the protests and the anger and the, maramari that occurred in Parliament, the Prime Minister has repeatedly said, one, I will see to it MSP will never go, it will not die, it's lies. People are liars, including his old cabinet colleagues, the Akalis. And so this is one statement of his. And it is consistent with his 2011 position that no transaction should be below MSP between trader and farmer. Second thing he has been saying is that these bills are clearing up the space for my promise of doubling farmers' incomes by 2022. In the last few years, he has said that at least 22 times. Okay. Now, if you want to do this, if this is your assurance as the Prime Minister of the nation, what is to stop you? Who is to stop you from putting down a few 5 paragraphs, a bill with 4 elements, just 4 elements, 1 paragraph each element and your conclusion. Number 1, entirely based on the Prime Minister's assurances. 1, and that of the BJP. Number 1 element, the MSP is guaranteed by the Swaminathan formula as promised by the BJP in 2014 when they said, when the Prime Minister, now Prime Minister said, within 12 months of coming to power, we will implement that recommendation of the Swaminathan Commission. First element. So the first element is MSP guaranteed at the under the Swaminathan formula. 2, no transaction between including new players, traders, corporations and farmers. No transaction can be below the MSP rate as recommended by the Prime Minister when he was Chief Minister of Gujarat. Third element, guaranteed procurement. The former governments of Maharashtra have made a mockery of procurement where everybody and many other states started following the example of the then Chief Minister, Mr. Deshmukh. What they would do is declare very high MSP, but not procure. In cotton, for instance, they would declare a high MSP when there was great distress in Vidarbha. Then they would open the MSP centers late into the season. In those 20-25 days, the farmers in desperation would divert their crop to the traders, to the privateers, etc., etc. The second thing they would do is they needed 300 MSP centers, they would open 140. The third thing they would do, they would close these centers 20 days before the end of the season. So late arrivals would again be channeled towards private trade. So the third element of the law, 1 paragraph, that guaranteed procurement. And the fourth element, you know, if you really want to double anyone's income by 22, you're not going to double or even increase by 10%. Anybody who is the income of anybody who is drowning in debt. So you announce cancellation of farmer debt totally, which is a farmer demand for years now. So you do these, you've got a law which you have promised, which you have given an assurance on. I would like those 8 MPs who are suspended, they'd come back walking on their hands to vote for that bill. So you can, if the Prime Minister wishes, simply by putting his assurances on paper, he can solve this problem.